Hey, it's Sam, and I'm talking today about the full moon in Taurus that's happening on December 7th. It's happening in Rohini Nakshatra, and this full moon in Taurus is going to be opposite, of course, the sun in Scorpio, and it's also closely joined Mars in Taurus as well, retrograde Mars in Taurus. And, this will be a very interesting time right now, very transformative, as all full moons are. So we're going to break all that out for you today and explain these things. So check this out. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. Okay, so as I say here, this moon is in Taurus, and it's part of what's called the Indian or the Vedic Panchanga. That's what the full moon is. Full moon is one of the 15 lunar days of the waxing moon and then of the waning moon. And these, 15 lunar days are built into the Indian timekeeping system. It's really the most ancient, I think, systematized timekeeping that the world knows. And so this Panchanga means 5 limbs. It starts with the tithi or the lunar day, which is how far the moon is separated from the sun. It's also based on the Nakshatra, which is the 27 portion of space that it's in, the 27 degree or the 27 aspect of space that it's in. And also based on the Vara or the day, and also based on what's called the Nitya Yoga and what's called the Karana, which is the half day or the half tithi. So very interesting timekeeping system. I'm going to give you some information about that later on as well, because I've been doing these forecasts, these daily forecasts based on the Indian Panchanga for close to 20 years now. I just dropped a link in the comments for those watching live that has a link where you can get daily forecasts for only 50 cents. And try them out for a couple weeks. But within that, I also do the full moon and new moon forecast for each of the 12 zodiac signs, because relative to wherever Taurus is falling for you, there's going to be a special emphasis on this full moon. And of course, it's also going to be opposite where the sun is in Scorpio. So what the full moons are doing is they're harmonizing the energy of where the sun is, because the sun is where the light is coming in through any given time, through like any given period. So right now, as I'm doing this, the sun has been in Scorpio for a few weeks. And so, like, for example, if you're a Capricorn person, the sun cycle that we're in is the 11th house. It's related to the 11th house because Scorpio falls in the 11th sign from Capricorn. So the sun has moved into that 11th house, and we have the new moon there. And then the full moon is the opposite point, which is the 5th house for a Capricorn person, for example. So this light and power being in one area and then being harmonized with the opposite each month is going on. And of course, even in English, the word month comes from moon. Back in the Vedas, the months were related to the moon. Notice how a month is about 30 days. Well, so is a lunation cycle. It takes 30 days for the sun and the moon to come back to the same point in space where they join each other. That's what a month is. It's literally a month, you would say it more accurately. So these soli lunar months are really the basis of our calendar. The Earth going around the sun, one revolution makes a year, but then within that revolution of the Earth going around the sun, we have 12 lunation cycles where the sun and moon come back to the same point 12 times as a new moon and then a full moon. So the full moon is the one that we really see, we really feel it. A lot of people focus on the full moon. And so at this time, we're feeling that full moon being in Taurus, where we're very full of our feelings and emotions and trying to really stabilize that and harmonize that Scorpio energy. So as it says, Taurus seeks peace, stability, attachment. That's opposite where the sun is in Scorpio, which is sort of the opposite. It seeks instability. It seeks intensity, not attachment, but it can often break connection. I did the new moon in Scorpio a couple weeks ago. Go back and listen to it, where I talked about this new moon in Scorpio is when sun and moon come together. And it's where we're going to test and probe all of those points where we feel a kind of weakness. And we feel the weakness, we feel the weakest where we're emotionally vulnerable. All those places where, let's say, there's love, and there's love and attachment to how we feel about the people we love. For example, let's say a mother loves her child and she is so attached to it, but there's also this like terrifying feeling, like, like literally, what if the baby dies? Like, oh, I don't even want to think about that. Like, I don't know if I could even survive that. I feel so vulnerable and so terrified of the possibility that this thing I love so much is going to be taken away from me, that I have to do everything I can to hold on to that. And it can make us like worried and paranoid and vulnerable, and where we feel that way. This is the kind of an underlying message of Scorpio. Of course, it's not the only thing. You have to see this as a kind of seed principle. From there, then the Scorpio energy, which we're all dealing with now because the sun is in Scorpio. We just also had Mars and Venus in Scorpio. But we're all trying to strengthen our vulnerabilities right now because we're in that Scorpio cycle, and try to strengthen those areas of life where we feel vulnerable. And that, again, that falls in a different place from each person. Like myself, I'm Gemini, so it's my 6th house. Someone's Cancer, it's their 5th house. Leo, it's their 4th house, right? So everyone is experiencing this same Scorpio cycle in a different way relative to their rising sign. Of course, people also have the planets are arranged differently in their charts, so it might be hitting vulnerable points and whatnot. But this is how you take what's happening in the sky, this sort of shared karma we all have, and you contextualize it with each individual. But the halfway point in that Scorpio cycle is Taurus, where we settle into this idea that, okay, maybe I have this terrifying fear that everything is going to get taken away from me. But, when sun and moon come together there, which it was a couple weeks ago, it can be very visceral in our mind and consciousness. But then the moon keeps going. The moon is moving away from the sun, and then the moon starts getting more distance. And now it's at that opposite point where now we're feeling more settled and stable into those true values that we have, the enduring values, not to mention the stable structures in our life. We're not as vulnerable as we imagine in our most paranoid moments, which can be the negative quality of Scorpio. We're vulnerable, but we're not as vulnerable as we think. And by the way, even if we lose, and if I say if, but it's really when we lose all of those things that we're so terrified of losing, we actually have a lot more resilience and capacity to endure than we think. And these are the lessons that we learn from Taurus, because Taurus is that beauty, that enduring beauty that's not conditioned on another person or even our children or this stable thing we have. It's actually an aspect and facet of our consciousness. So Taurus is the part of us that seeks peace, stability, and attachment to certain things. Now, both Scorpio and Taurus actually seek attachment. But with Scorpio, we have so much emotional attachment that we almost want to be free of the attachment because we feel it can sort of dominate and sort of destroy our, we have so much attachment that we're afraid we won't be able to survive without it. Again, so this is the almost kind of terrifying possibility that we all experience and realize in some ways in the Scorpio lesson. But again, Taurus, the opposite, is it's not this emotional stress around it. It's actually when we look around in our life at the things we actually have, because this is really what Taurus is. It's an earth sign. We see even just that the earth is beautiful. The sky is beautiful. The people around us, just there's beauty everywhere. Everything is beautiful. There was a song, in its own way. Everything is beautiful, right? In its own way. And we see that, right? It's ruled by Venus, right? It's not, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, where we're trying to strengthen our emotional vulnerabilities. Venus is ruled by Taurus, where we see the beauty everywhere. And we actually really feel it, because this is the moon we're talking about more than anything. This is a cycle that's related to the moon. But we feel it in our heart. We can really feel that beauty, that transcendent beauty, and that gratitude for the beauty and the beautiful things in our life. We can just look out the window, look up in the sky and see a sunset, and it calms us. This is why, especially things like nature, like getting out in nature is so wonderful for people who have important Taurus planets. If people have the moon in Taurus, or Taurus is their rising sign, or they have a lot of planets in Taurus, that whole connection to, again, nature, the natural world, is very healing. It's healing for all of us, but they will naturally gravitate toward those types of things. People who have a lot of Taurus, and even just a lot of Venus energy. So this is a very important time right now to harmonize the imagined fears and stressful emotions of Scorpio, which again feel very which can make us very ungrounded, and ground them, literally the ground of Taurus, that stable, solid, beautiful ground that's always there nurturing and supporting us. I mean, you can think of Taurus this way, that even let's just use strange, it's not a strange example, but it's a strange thing to say, that there's a way to look at things in spiritual traditions, and I don't know where the phrase came from or the first time I heard it, but it's something to the effect of, even the terrible people, even the evil people, the earth provides for them also. They also get to breathe the air and see the sunset and eat the food and enjoy life. Even the terrible people, whoever you think are terrible people, the sun shines for them too. The world is beautiful for them too. The sun is, the beautiful sunset is there for them too. They might not recognize it or see it, but it's still there. And so that transcendent beauty can really also heal and take us out of our possessive, frustrated quest to possess beauty. You see, the biggest problem with the Venus energy is that we want to possess and own the beauty. We want to own the other person. Once we fall in love with someone, or we think they're beautiful, and now I want you, now I own a part of you, and when you stop making me happy, now I'm going to get angry because this part of you is mine. It's mine. Or this thing is mine. And it's very stressful, because ultimately we don't own anything here. It all belongs to the Divine Mother. And when that includes our children, and the parent who's terrified that they're going to lose the child, that the child's going to die or whatever. Again, the terrifying paranoia of Scorpio. Guess what? The child is going to die one day. We all are. You're going to die too. All of us are. So this is really what the Scorpio energy is really activating. This kind of paranoia and imagined fear that's going to become real eventually, because the real fear is our own lack of control over life, because we don't have control. We have this illusion of control. And in Scorpio, which is where the sun is, it's where Mars and Venus were just recently. In Scorpio, we're aware of our lack of control. So what do? We try to control. And we try to control by battling and fighting and struggling. We try to usually control other people. Our world revolves around all these other people. So if you want to use that paradigm, instead of trying to control, let's say, other people or whatever it might be, this full moon in Taurus is where we realize, where we can easily relinquish control, because the sublime energy and the sublime beauty of life elevates and transcends our desire to want to control. No one looks at the sunset and says, I want to control it. We just enjoy it. We see it and perceive that beauty for what it actually is. And that could be a great lesson to us, because what it's doing is it's mirroring back that part of ourself that is transcendent beauty. Because what that beauty gives us is an experience of our own transcendent, beautiful nature and blissful nature. Because we didn't have to do anything to earn that beautiful moment. We just look up in the sky and we see that, and we become immensely grateful, enormous gratitude for all that the Divine Mother provides, for all that this beautiful world is, and the fact that we have life. And we become grateful to that. And then we can see beauty everywhere. We start to see beauty everywhere, not as a possession. Again, it's the ego that wants to possess. All of our suffering comes through some aspect of the ego interfering with the pure nature of that energy. The pure nature of Venus is that beauty. But the ego says, I want some of it. Some of it's mine, and I'm going to get it. Again, just like with Mars. Mars is that true power, that transcendent power. So the ego, though, will distort that and think, oh yeah, I have power in this way with this person. This is where I'm getting power. So now I need to control that thing so I can keep getting that power. But no, the power is from within. So we need to transform that possessive quality of the ego and elevate it towards something more transcendent and universal. So these are big themes, but it's also very down to earth with the moon in Taurus, because again, this is where the moon is also exalted. This is where the moon feels the most settled and stable. And it's where, and especially the Rohini Nakshatra, which is really the beauty of life as a stabilizing force. Because when we're surrounded by beauty, we feel like we're home on earth in the body. By the way, when we really connect with like Jupiterian energy, then we feel like the universe is our home, because now we're connected with elevated teachings that are beyond. But when we connect with Venus, we really feel like the earth is our home. Like, yes, the earth is also my home. And we want to feel that in our body. We want to feel like, yes, I belong here. And again, we want to feel in our body because our mind is really just a subtle part of the body. It's just a subtle part of the mind-body structure. The body and all of that is driven by our emotions and our feelings and the connection to our heart. And that's exalted in Taurus because it becomes stable. And again, you want to understand that this is in contrast to the emotions which are typically longing. In our heart, we're usually longing for something. We don't feel like we're good enough, or we have enough, or there's always, well, tomorrow I'll have this, then I'll calm down, then I'll be calm. With Taurus, it's like, no, I'm here. This is enough. I feel it. I appreciate it. I can rest in it. So it brings up the yoga principle of santosha, which is contentment with what we have. Rather than longing for what we don't, it's contentment for what we have. So that's very possible at this time with this full moon in Taurus. Rather than this restless longing for the next thing and the uncertainty and the vulnerability that we feel because the sun is still in Scorpio and those planets went through Scorpio, now's the time to really relax into that knowing and appreciation of even like your friends and family and the stability that you have in your life, the money that you have that can support at least a certain amount of comfort, and not taking it for granted and just trying to acquire more. The difficulty of Taurus and even also of Rohini could be in that you have maybe lost a connection to that appreciation. we always have to be careful a little bit with Taurus energy, because it can also be a little bit greedy in the context of, again, the ego loves to acquire. Oh, I want more of this. I want more of that. And I want to hang on to all the stuff I have and not transition, not transform. So there's an active, dialogue going on between Scorpio and Taurus, where Scorpio is transforming and changing, and Taurus is stabilizing. Too much Scorpio and there's no stability and just constant change. Too much Taurus and there's no change. And there's no transform. Yeah, there's no change, just constant stability. So again, we're trying to strike this harmonic balance between the two. And this is how the full moons reveal that dynamic possibility, where we see both contained in the other. Now, this particular full moon is also joined Mars, retrograde Mars, very powerful. Mars is its most retrograde. Look up in the sky right now. If you haven't seen it, look up. I'm lucky because here I get to sit out in my hot tub, and I look up and I can see Jupiter over here and then Mars over here and the moon getting closer. I just saw the moon this past week or like weekend move from join Jupiter to now moving over to Mars. I lay there in my hot tub. It's right up there now in the sky at about 6 o'clock or something. I see Mars. I see Jupiter over here, Mars over here. We'll do it like that. And then the moon kind of moving closer and closer. So last night it was like Mars was here and the moon was like here. So tonight it'll be even closer. It'll be kind of moving right next to it. You see Mars is big and bright up there in the sky. So look up and see that full moon and see Mars next to it. And then look over a little bit to the west and you'll see Jupiter. He's also bright because he was retrograde not too long ago. So this is showing, again, because Mars is the ruler of this Scorpio energy and he's retrograde. So again, and he's in Taurus. So his energy is being much more subdued now. So there's a great possibility that we can get these messages that I'm talking about with the Scorpio energy and the paranoia and the disruptive quality of Mars being more subdued. This disruptive Mars energy being more subdued because he's retrograde and in Taurus. And especially join the moon now, though, it could be a great inner revelation. Because when planets are retrograde, they're also more introspective. So being subdued just means that we're not as aggressive externally, like fighting and externalizing that energy so much right now. When the planet's retrograde, we hesitate, we wait, we're more careful. And in this context with Mars in Taurus, it's definitely subduing quite a bit of those Mars qualities, especially to fight and be disruptive. But again, you can't judge it as good or bad or whatever. It's just an observation. But I say it because usually Mars moon, and there's a lot of frustration that might get expressed outwardly. But you might feel a lot of inner frustration. You might feel it building up even now, the day before. Some internal emotional frustration. And this is to help become more disciplined internally. The moon is exalted, so it's stable in Taurus. When it's stable, it means that you can sit with it. You can sit with your emotions much more easily. So when someone has the moon in Taurus, again, because our emotions are usually where, as soon as we start to feel something emotional that we don't like, we run. We want to run away from it. And that means we run away from what we're doing. This is why many people have a hard time meditating. The moon is the part of you that's trying to meditate. The part that needs meditation and has a hard time doing it. Because the first thing that happens when you start trying to meditate is you realize that your mind is a mess, that you're a bit bonkers, then it's hard to sit there and observe your mind jumping all over the place and how all of your emotions, you have nothing to cover it up at that point. You're not, you're not distracting yourself with your phone or whatever the heck else you're distracting yourself with. Sit there and close your eyes and you'll get a glimpse of your true emotional state. And this is what often makes people not want to do it. And this is why, like I always talk about, you don't have to learn how to meditate on your own. They've been doing it in India for like thousands of years. You have things like a mantra, breath. There's a simple way to do it. But again, you sit down with the mantra and the breath, your mind gets used to it, and then you're in your mind again, jumping all over the place. So the thing is that when the moon is in Taurus, often we could sit with that discomfort. We're all going to feel the discomfort when we try to meditate, even when we meditate all the time. I meditate all the time, and I sit down, and first, the mind that is meditating was just distracted and irritable and jumping all over the place 2 seconds earlier. Those who know how to meditate or who meditate regularly can go from that place to a place that's still and silent pretty quickly because you've been able to do it, just like anything else you've practiced. But it doesn't mean as soon as you close the eyes, your mind was where it was before you closed them, like right before. All these thoughts, all this, but then you connect with the breath and you go in. So when the moon is in Taurus, we have a lot of that capacity. Not just Taurus, there's a lot of things that show when someone can meditate, but this is one that you would definitely see is there's a higher capacity because the moon is stable. That's what is getting stabilized, is all the emotions. So Mars being there retrograde means, as you go to meditate, you're going to be feeling that intensity of Mars, maybe that irritability, frustration. But Mars is also the courage and the enthusiasm to persevere. And also that visceral energy. Mars is like that, literally is symbolized by Subramanya, the young man with the young warrior with the spear. And the spear is a very important symbol. Beyond a symbol, it's a literal thing, and we use a spear to pierce something. And Mars is incredibly important, if not critical or crucial, in meditation. You have to understand it's not just irritation and things like that. It's also when you transform irritation, it becomes focus, and it'll take you where you're going faster than anything. And then that mind becomes like a spear that pierces the veils of illusion quicker than anything. So this quality of Mars retrograde join this exalted moon is really important for the next, several days, week, even as we move forward, not just with moon, not just this one day. You have to understand this isn't just a day, it's a cycle. This has been the culmination of like 15 days from the time the moon was new. A couple of weeks ago, it started getting closer to full. Now it's very close to full. Then it's going to be exactly full. Then it'll start to wane from that and start to move on to the next thing. But we're meant to be moving with these cycles all the time. So this particular one, it's an exalted full moon, joined retrograde Mars, who's the ruler of the sun, where all that energy is. So it's a great opportunity for you to really pierce those veils of illusion, sit in that which is very stable and profound yourself, and not just sort of run from it. And like I said, the one thing to also really understand is every day is different. Every day we have one of the lunar days, one of the tithis. Like today, I'm recording this on December 6th. It's Chaturdashi, which is the 14th tithi before the full moon. It's the one right before it. Yesterday it was Trayadashi, the 13th. Before that it was Dwadashi, the 12th. Ekadashi, Dasam, So you have one every day. You have a new lunar day 1, day 2, day 3, which shows a 12-degree separation from the sun every day, culminating in 15 days. You'll have a full moon. Then the day after, it'll be Pratipad of waning moon, Krishna Pratipad, Krishna Dvitya, Krishna Tritya, Krishna Chaturthi. Then they start to wane. So this happens every day. And then the moon also moves into a new nakshatra. It's in Rohini Nakshatra. Actually, it's in Kritika Nakshatra now. It's going to be in Rohini Nakshatra, then Mrigashira, then Ardra, then Punarvasu, then Pushya, etc. And the moon is in a different sign every day. I mean, every 2.5 days, it moves into a different Rashi. And it's a different Vara, or day of the week. So, as I said at the beginning, I've been doing daily forecasts for close to 20 years now. I started doing them in like 2005. I forget, actually 2004. I forget how long it's been. 18 years I've been doing them pretty much every day. And I have a way for you to access that, where you can, if you haven't gotten it before, you can get 2 weeks of the forecasts, also the full and new moon forecast, because as I said, if you're a Pisces person, then this full moon is happening in your 3rd house. And it's opposite the new moon that just happened, which was in your 9th house. So for all people who have a Pisces ascendant, this is a 9th house cycle for you. And right now you're getting it harmonized with the 3rd house. So the 9th house of great spiritual teachings and wisdom wanting to come into your life is being harmonized now with the 3rd house of saying, yeah, but does that really make sense? Do I understand how that works? So this is the monthly cycle for you. And these things are happening whether you know it or not. If you're a Libra person, this is the 2nd and 8th house. So again, for Libra, you started the 2nd house cycle 2 weeks ago of your values, family, money, things that you hold dear, your speech, how you convey those things. And this full moon is happening in your 8th house, which is the need and the ability to transform and change those things, to embrace uncertainty, etc. It happens all the time, whether you know it or not. So I encourage you to check that out as well. For 50 cents, you can get a 2-week trial to the Astrology Training Lab. In this, you get daily forecasts from Sam Jeppy. These are based on the Indian Panchanga, the classical Indian timekeeping system. You also get a monthly calendar from Melissa Flores Davies, where you can plan your whole month and see all the shifts. You also get 8 hours of classes just for joining, new and full moon updates from me as well. Again, it's only 50 cents for a 2-week trial, then $39.95 for as long as you want to stay a member. Just go to astrologytraininglab.com to register.